Oh,
I have a question.
hide that.
I love that. I love
Easy
questions.
donated $200. There's no justification for non-essential surgery, especially one as severe and life-changing as trans surgery. How can you promote kids doing this, really? The lesbian New World Order can't be stopped.
If you guys want 30,
Where in the conversation I heard anybody talking about trans youth. That's so weird. It's almost like they just didn't watch the fucking show.
Well, it actually starts with there's no justification for non-essential surgery.
Well, that's another issue because you're framing the narrative of whether or not surgeries for trans people is essential or not. Sorry, Pixie.
That's the point of the
did
justification.
you have
What's a
what?
framing
You
of
had
the
something, or
Well, I mean,
is this a response to the TTS, or?
Basically, it would be a response to what's going on right now when it comes to like non-essential surgery, which we can get into. But you wanted to read some stuff, or fuck it, I'm just gonna say it.
I'll allow each one of you to make a 30-second point on that TTS. Go ahead.
Okay. I personally believe in like individual freedom and liberty. I think when it comes to like surgeries, like there should be leniency. If people want to get a boob job, then fuck it. Who am I to say what you do with your body? Some people will say, oh no, this is going to self-harm. Are we letting people really like self-harm themselves? I think there's a lot of data on trans people and how like these reaffirming gender surgeries like do help their mental health, as long as they're in conjunction with also having like a supportive network in general. So yeah, I think people should be allowed to get trans surgeries if they want to. Generally speaking.
Is there anything on that?
Yeah, so when you're talking about the performance in society, right? What about, do you have any, I just want to ask you this, do you have any duties at all to society? Do you personally have any?
Of course.
What?
I don't think I should go and kill other people who are
that's
innocent.
obeying laws.
No, that's a duty. I have a moral duty to not harm other people.
Okay, so this particular thing that you're talking about, when you're talking about kind of the way that society interacts with like T surgery, let's say, right? I'm trying to be very cautious with my words here so I don't break any TOS, but let's just say T surgery, you say, I think that people should be able to do it if they're allowed to. If society gets negative results, most of society gets negative results from that, would you still be for it?
Can you point to me what are the negative results?
Yeah, so I'm going to point to you that most of this society, the current society that we're in, are religious. And that most of the globe is religious. Most of the globe is religious. Most of the planet Earth is religious. So the negative side effects that comes to them, the actual pain and suffering that they experience from having to be part of this delusion is never something you people take into account.
I have a very simple question. If most of the globe was racist, right, and you going against this racism, you advocating for equal rights, hurt their feelings really, really badly because they're just ardent racist, does that mean that we now have a duty to also comply in that racism?
No, but think about what you're saying. What you're saying here is that the only reason that you affirm this is because of the consequent, right? You think that the consequent is better for society, so I could make the argument the same way that you would and say the consequent of non-racism is better for society. You and I would agree. Here, the consequent, we're disagreeing about whether or not it's better for society, so your argument doesn't make any sense.
Do you think that it's good to have a society?
No, hang on. Before you cut in, your argument doesn't make any sense.
No, it does make sense.
Now, how does it make sense?
I literally listed two reasons, right? I say we have a moral duty to try not to harm others, right? That doesn't mean that, like, oh no, like my feelings are hurt. Now suddenly that's an equal moral consequence of hurting another person.
What's harm?
I think you could see harm when it comes to like suicide or
right. So,
no word.
So if you're talking,
Delete.
so again, what you're saying is, right? Do this thing for them, regardless of the harm that it is to you, because it's more harmful to them because they're holding you emotionally hostage.
What is your level of harm? That's my question. Okay.
Well, for me, I'm not a consequentialist.
But let's put this very simple. Let's use a Peter Singer example. You see a child drowning in a pond. Okay. You can go save that child, but as a result, you're gonna get your shoes wet, and that's kind of harmful to you. They're like nice new shoes. You know, you don't like the feeling of soggy socks.
Yeah, this doesn't even work.
Hey, listen, please listen. Hey, no, listen, please. So here's the deal, right? We can all agree that there is a level of like, hey, you know what? You might not be uncomfortable with this. You know, this might like hurt you a little bit, whatever. But you should still do this action because it's a greater moral right. Saying, oh no, you're gonna feel some level of harm, so don't do something is not a good argument for not helping another person.
Okay,
that is what the argument is.
But getting your shoes wet is very different than this.
No, okay.
Could I
Hold on. Let's get these two in. Did you want to go?
Yeah, but let her go.
Okay, you, then you. Go ahead.
I mean, it's kind of got past there, but I do think it was interesting to say it. To cite as a reason for harm is that a lot of the world is religious when a lot of almost how many wars were fought for religion, how much pain's been caused because of religion, how much war was fought for atheism and secularism. The entire 20th century, under communism, communists eradicated religion, ruthlessly eradicated religion, was responsible for some of the grossest amounts of the death rate in the 20th century. Totally secularist society, totally secular.
Yeah, I mean, I think like citing religion as the source of like violence is kind of low resolution, because the reality is that it's like ideology is the source of wars, right? The reason why actually I shouldn't go into that. I was about to bring up a conflict that you probably don't want on your channel right now. The reason why like lots of people go into war, they might even claim that it's a holy war. Half the time it's ideology. Half the time it's like groupthink and like out groupthink. So like blaming religion for violence is as empty to me as blaming like atheism for like violence. Like any ideology that's taken to an extreme to justify violence is going to lead to violence. Religion's one of those, obviously, but so is communism, so is Nazism.
Yeah, I wouldn't dispute that you can have and have had religious wars. Of course you have. But this idea that's inside of people's brains that religion is the biggest cause of the conflict that's going on in the world, the 20th century does not bear that out at all. That is not what the 20th century shows.
What did you have?
I was just going to say there's a lot in today's society of transgender people who do get surgery have come out and said that they really regret it and it really has ruined their lives, and there's been a lot of of people that
are you talking about like detransitioners?
Yeah.
I mean,
detransitioners.
I don't know. They were born that way, though, right?
And they come out and say that they that the LGBT community or the trans community
what percent
told
do you
them
think
that
detransition?
this was.
What percent do you think detransition?
Honestly, I couldn't give you an exact.
Well, we don't know.
number,
Take a guess. Take a guess before you jump
say
in.
like 4-5%.
Right, super small.
Super
it's less
low,
than that.
but-
it's less than
but
that. It's less than 1%
you're-
typically.
Yeah, but what
You're
is the
taking-
percentage of people who
that-
identify
that-
as trans who
Right.
transition at all?
Right.
Exactly.
Sorry,
And also,
say that again?
What is the percentage of trans who transition at all? Self-ID trans?
Quite high, actually. Not
Wow,
self-ID.
I thought it was
again,
1%. Isn't it 1%?
It's
1% of the
very
population
low.
is trans.
No, 1% is trans. The number of people who do end up transitioning is significantly higher.
Wait.
Not all can afford medically transitioning.
Wait.
but Almost
Just
all
one
attempt some level of
clarification.
transition.
So 1% of the population is trans, but a higher percent of the
Within that
population.
percentage.
No, within the 1%.
Oh, okay.
1%
I thought you were
well,
saying
it's not even that. Within the 1%.
No.
Let's
of the
say
population is
80%
just
transition. Of
transi-
the 80%,
okay.
1%
I see.
I have a question,
detransition.
though.
Okay, last
We're
thing
talking
on
like
this. Last thing.
tiny
Last thing.
Okay,
Go ahead.
yeah. Do you think that transition surgeries should be funded by, the
She's Canadian.
I'm Canadian, so I'm probably going to have I'm definitely pro universal healthcare. I am for it, but not as it currently exists as far as vetting right now. So I wouldn't like put a hold on it necessarily, but there's a lot of really good research being done in especially a lot of European countries to ensure that the people that are applying and getting the surgeries actually need it. Because one thing I will say that is extremely important to cite here is that a very well replicated finding is that when adults transition, there is a reduction of suicide attempts by over 70%. It is a massive drop, and before anyone says, the pediatric studies on that didn't replicate as far as like conversion therapy working.
Just a reminder, use
don't
delete
use that
yourself
Don't use
or
that
on
word.
live
Sorry.
or something.
But